everybody, welcome back. It's another Whiteboard Wednesday. It's so great to see you again. So today we're going to discuss a very deep and important topic, what I call the 3 missing ingredients for optimal wellness and for healing a disease like autoimmunity. And that is self-love, self-acceptance, and self-forgiveness. So if we're talking about self-love for a minute, when you love something or you are in love with someone else or yourself, right? We have hormones known as oxytocin and dopamine and vasopressin. These are released from the brain, and we can see that on MRIs and studies that the brain lights up and these sites become very active when you express love. Right? When you love, you're on a higher vibration that allows for improvements in mental health and immunity and everything else, actually. But self-love is not just about loving yourself, but includes giving more love to others and as well as receiving it from others. My philosophy is that in order to embrace implicit self-love from yourself and others, you have to accept and forgive yourself. A lot of people say they love themselves, but haven't forgiven themselves or accepted themselves. So how can you love yourself unconditionally if you have not done those 2 things? That's my question for you. Now, from my perspective, you can clearly see on social media and Instagram, especially, the message of self-love and body acceptance that everyone's always talking about and posting about. It's a great thing, without a shadow of a doubt. Nothing wrong with it at all. There's a reason, though, why that doesn't always work, right? Our upbringing, our childhood has a lot to do with this. Were you praised or were you condemned by your caregiver? Were you listened to or were you being constantly chastised and yelled at? Did you receive positive attention or were you ignored? Were you spoken to or were you mocked, right? If you face neglect, abuse, criticism, disinterest from a parent, etc., well, we know from studies that negative self-esteem, anger, like social withdrawal, poor social interactions, and disease of all types are all very much potential outcomes. Quite honestly, I find these practices of self-love, these affirmations, or these physical behaviors that prove self-love to be one massive, misleading tsunami of lies that's drowning us because it's contrived self-love. We have suffered from unlovability for so long, so we think these practices will just help us find that. But like I said, there's one piece missing that must precede this in order to have self-love and to have that be valid. Self-acceptance. We desire to love ourselves. We love the idea of loving, but we haven't accepted ourselves yet. That is where a lot of people are stuck. You must be willing to recognize and have non-judgmental acceptance of where you are right now and who you are right now in this very moment. We're all human and we deserve it. You and me both. We're all doing the best that we can right now with our circumstances. But based on the stories that you keep telling yourself, it's very hard to sit in the same room with self-love. And that brings us to self-acceptance, the prerequisite for self-love. I already mentioned that you can't love yourself without accepting yourself. If you, for example, love your significant other, would it make sense that you aren't accepting of he or she? Conversely, you can accept yourself, but not love yourself. There are 2 things this can insinuate. So you can accept that you're sick, you're overweight, you're in an abusive relationship, you're unmotivated, but not love yourself because of those reasons. Of course, maybe some of those things are not in your control. And if that's the case, then choosing not to love yourself is not serving you. There's a high chance of victimhood right there. And in truth, you have every reason to love yourself, regardless of your circumstances. Right? These realities are a part of you, but don't define you. You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become. Do you choose to be a prisoner of your painful circumstances, or do you choose to be liberated and live your life and achieve your dreams? Now, conversely, you can accept something that was in your control, but you're choosing not to portray love to yourself because of that. A good example of this is lack of forgiveness because you made a mistake and caused harm to others. So my question for you is, where in your life have you not forgiven yourself? And maybe you've accepted your wrongdoing with that, but you haven't forgiven yourself. Because if you haven't, you've shielded yourself from love no matter where it comes from, right? In this situation, choosing not to love yourself and forgive yourself is indeed a form of self-betrayal. Where people get stuck, I think, is that they're in this daily cyclical pattern of reaffirming self-love through words or actions when their subconscious mind is not convinced. It says otherwise, right? So there's like this loveless love going on. Ironically, while one may attempt to practice self-love, we still tend to repel it when it comes from others simply because we are secretly uncomfortable with who we are, and that channels into our patterns of shielding off love no matter who wants to give it to us. And you don't give love either because you feel that no one should receive love from someone who is undeserving of love. So we're left with always wanting to change the circumstances, our weight, our image, our job, right? And when we achieve that, then subconsciously we can justify that we are deserving of love. A lot of people suffer because of their lack of forgiveness. Forgiving is not a requirement, right? Life wasn't like you have to forgive people if you want to survive and exist. But I will say that it is rather necessary if you want to get better and you're sick with a disease and you have unmanaged, unresolved anger and resentment, because that's going to harbor inside of you and block your energetic channels. Okay, it's going to affect your biology. Forgiving, though, is not intended to necessarily pardon or excuse the person from what they've done to you. But the intention is to disallow the pain from harming you and your heart. It's not forgetting the situation, the harm that was done to you, but rather to no longer feel the pain that was done. Right? It's letting go of the past so that we can have harmony within ourselves and our spiritual dimension again. Right? Forgiving takes us from being prisoners of the past with hurtful memories and pain and shifting us to strong, loving people living in the present moment who are free of those chains. However, we could have made a poor decision, and we have not forgiven ourselves for that. There are 4 different types of forgivenesses that I mapped out here, and these are things that we probably want to explore. And the first one is forgiving ourselves for an act or behavior that has caused harm or injury to others, and we have consequently felt guilty and remorseful because of it. We have to forgive ourselves for doing that. We have to forgive ourselves for the negative self-talk that may accompany that, right? If we chastise ourselves and we judge ourselves and say, you shouldn't have done that, what's wrong with you, you suck, you're worthless, that's a problem. We have to forgive ourselves for that negative energy. We have to forgive ourselves for any self-harm that we may do to ourselves, whether it's addiction, alcohol, or binging, right? That's a big one. We need to forgive ourselves for eating too much, right? And lastly, we need to forgive others. Forgiveness to the person who harmed you, right? Who made you feel a certain way. It's to the extent that you're ready, you want to forgive them as much as you can. You may forgive them a little bit more each day so that you get to a point where you are free from those chains that we spoke about, but that's the intention with it. It may not happen overnight, and that's okay. This ties into your past, and we receive these emotions from our parents or an adult or somebody, so we need to forgive those people that harmed us if we experience some sort of trauma in our childhood. Guilt, shame, abandonment, betrayal, these are the typical emotions that might be stemming from our past, and it's swirling above us like a storm. And we have to allow the sun to peek through and watch that dissipate. So when we accept ourselves for who we are, right, our values, our talents, our personality, our image, our body image, and when we honor our successes, we honor our life as a gift. When we practice gratitude for our qualities, our traits, our gifts and talents, when we forgive ourselves for harm that we've done to ourselves by saying, I'm sorry, I forgive you. And we forgive others for what they have done to us. And we heal those wounds daily and practice that daily. And practice forgiveness. Then self-love arrives to us and we welcome it and give it without even thinking about it. So when we do those things, we can lose weight and not hate ourselves regardless if we lost weight or didn't lose weight. Lose weight because you love yourself, not because you hate yourself. Love can only heal. There is evidence even that shows that forgiveness heals pain. If you have pain you can't figure out, and you're taking meds and supplements, right? Changing your diet, what maybe you need is forgiveness to someone, yourself, or both. Forgiveness is the key to allowing the flood and flow of love from your greater self. And when we forgive ourselves and others, the channels of self-love remain open, which helps us feel the love of the greater self, and that connects us all. And naturally, all of your relationships are affected by how you feel about yourself. When we nurture self-love, we can exchange positive, life-enhancing energy with one another. Forgiveness is the greatest form of unconditional love and acceptance. And when you do these two things, then you find this. And you don't need to try so hard.